Topping today's news, both Pintard and Minnis hosting a pre-convention event this evening to garner support for their June 1st vote. 1 man killed and 5 injured in shooting incidents on Thursday. National Boys Week looking to make a dent in rising crime. And the Prime Minister visits the new Grand Bahama construction site for the hospital. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Jarino Saunders. This is your JCN Evening News, and it is a pleasure to have you join us. The highly anticipated Free National Movement one-day convention, fast approaching, set for next week, Saturday, June 1st. But tonight, former party leader and former Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis is expected to officially launch his leadership bid with a mini rally of sorts, 7 o'clock tonight at Bahamar at the Convention Center. We understand among the speakers will be former DNA leader Branville McCartney, former Deputy Prime Minister Desmond Bannister, and former Cabinet Minister Renwood Wells. Dr. Minnis is set to challenge incumbent F&M leader Michael Pintard, who himself is hosting a Meet the Leader Mix and Mingle event this evening at Breezes Super Clubs. They began at 6 p.m. It is uncertain who will be among the speakers at the Pintard event. Nevertheless, the winner of the leadership race will lead the F&M into the 2026 general elections, as this will be the final voting convention for the F&M before those general elections come around. Multiple shooting incidents in 3 areas of the capital on Thursday, leaving 1 man dead and 5 in hospital. It started around 4 p.m. as 2 men were traveling east on Ferguson Street in Bainstown in a silver Suzuki vehicle when another small gray Japanese car blocked them. 3 masked men, all armed with high-powered weapons and a handgun, got out of the car and opened fire on the victims, shooting both of them multiple times. A 22-year-old man died at the scene. Police say he was found in possession of a loaded gun and was being electronically monitored for murder and firearm-related matters. A 28-year-old man was taken to hospital via private vehicle, where at present his condition is listed as unknown. Meantime, police are investigating 2 separate shootings that occurred around 9 p.m. on Thursday, resulting in 4 men being hospitalized. In the first incident, police responded to shots fired on Sapodilla Boulevard, that's in Pinewood Gardens, and intercepted a pink Japanese vehicle en route to the hospital with occupants suffering from gunshot injuries. Police say the victims were on the outside of a residence when the occupants of a white Japanese vehicle drove past and discharged multiple gunshots at them. As a result, the first victim, aged 35, suffered multiple gunshot wounds to his upper body and his lower extremities, while the second victim, aged 28, was shot in the upper body. At last reports, both victims were in stable condition. The second incident on Thursday occurred at Fish Fry, Western Esplanade. Police say the occupants of a burgundy-colored Japanese vehicle arrived at a business establishment located at the rear of the Fish Fry. 2 males reportedly exited the vehicle and fired gunshot towards a group of people outside, which led to 2 individuals being shot. The first victim, a 35-year-old male, sustained multiple gunshot wounds to his upper body and lower body as well, while the second victim, a 21-year-old male, sustained a gunshot wound to his lower body. Both victims received medical attention at the hospital, and at last report, they were listed in stable condition. Police are appealing to anyone who may have information that can advance any of these matters to contact them at 911-919, or you can call the Criminal Investigations Department at 502-9991, or remain anonymous by calling Crime Stoppers in Miami at 328-TIPS, 328-8477. Already passed in the House of Assembly, the Trial by Judge Alone Bill 2024 and the Supreme Court Amendment Bill 2024 were debated and passed in the Senate on Thursday. The new laws will allow an individual to waive their right to a jury trial and elect instead to be tried by judge alone. Leading off debate, Attorney General Senator Ryan Pinder says the availability of jurors has oftentimes slowed the court process.
The ability to try accused persons in the Supreme Court within a reasonable time is often impacted by various factors, including the availability of jurors. Jurors are sometimes unavailable because they're self-employed, like you, my friend, or where they're employed, their employers, even though not right, are unwilling or unable or cause difficulties in attending juries. Moreover, jurors themselves are often reluctant to serve because of fear of recrimination from persons on whose cases in which they sit. They're scared of retaliation by sitting on a jury. That's a fact. Together, these circumstances lead to lengthy delays in bringing accused persons before the Supreme Court in trial.
Oftentimes, these delays allow for the accused to be released on bail, which can lead to other legal and criminal challenges, as evidence has shown people on bail for serious crimes continue to offend. For this reason, Senator Pinder says the new legislation would eliminate many of these challenges.
So you see how these all add up, Madam President, and how ultimately what we are trying to do is to be in a position to conduct trials more efficiently, more timely, to bring the administration of justice in a more predictable and shorter time frame. To one, so we're not obligated to grant bail when it's unnecessary to do so, but two, also ensure that those who are innocent are set free, and those who may be guilty are punished, and then when they are punished, Madam President, our agenda is to punish them with the full strength of the law.
Earlier this year, the current Chief Justice and 3 former Chief Justices agreed that the inflexibility of trial by jury in the Supreme Court ought to be amended, or abandoned rather, and at the very least, accused individuals should be given the option of having their cases decided by a judge alone. On May 7th, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs released a statement noting that the Bahamas formally recognizes Palestine as a state. The statement advised the public that cabinet members decided to formally recognize Palestine as a sovereign state in keeping with a vast majority of the 193 members in the United Nations. However, on Wednesday in the House of Assembly, opposition member for St. Anne's, Adrian White, questioned whether the government's decision was premature.
As I was surprised, Madam Speaker, by the May 7th, 2024 announcement from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where it wished to advise that Cabinet has decided to formally recognize Palestine as a state. Now, Madam Speaker, I don't think there was any national discussion on this, and yes, the executive ultimately appointed through first past the poll Westminster system can make the decisions on governance for the nation, but we have opportunity in the Honorable House of Assembly for communications from ministers, and there was no communication prior to the fact. There was no communication after the fact from our very verbose Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Honorable Member for Fox Hill.
Mr. White went on to explain that many of the Bahamas' traditional allies, like the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom, do not recognize Palestine as a state because there have been no negotiations between Israel and the Palestinian authorities, and that the Bahamas government should keep this fact in mind. Well, today, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Fred Mitchell, responded to Mr. White's comments with disdain.
I'm always amazed, though I shouldn't be, at the level of low intelligence commentary that comes from some of those who take on public leadership roles and should know better. The MB for St. Anne's, one Adrian White, he of special privilege and nature's passport, was busy muddying the water in the House of Assembly on Wednesday past by seeking through larceny to attack the decision of the Bahamas government to recognize, along with 14 CARICOM countries and 140 other states of the UN, the state of Palestine. This is quite sad, and his analysis passes for public policy. Sad indeed. The member said he was blindsided. I can only thank my colleague, Parliamentary Secretary Jamal Strawn, for putting Mr. White in his place, for talking foolishness. As for being blindsided, there are none so blind as those who will not see. Shame on you, Mr. White.
Fred Mitchell, the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And finally, in this segment, leader of the opposition, Michael Pintard, is demanding the government pursue comprehensive land reform to improve access to Crown land for Bahamians. His comments came after a debate in the House of Assembly on a resolution allowing the government to sell 1.35 acres of Crown land in Central Abaco to the Medi Center for $120,000. Mr. Pintard says there must be changes to the system to reduce approval delays for Bahamian entrepreneurs.
One of the things, Madam Speaker, I intend to do in the not too distant future, 1 or 2 years or less, is to make sure that prime ministers do not spend an inordinate amount of time trying to figure out who gets Crown land. It is such an important function, but it is a function that can, to a significant extent, be delegated to a subcommittee of cabinet or persons who can look at the allocation of land. Some of this stuff is quite automatic. After 25 years of having a parcel of land that you have productively engaged in agriculture, light manufacturing, et cetera, you are now entitled for a Crown grant.
Member of Parliament for Mangrove Key, Central and South Andros, Leon Lundy, shot back at Mr. Pintard, clarifying how the approval process actually works under the Davis administration.
I'm the minister responsible for Crown land, and we issue Crown land based on the recommendations from the capable Department of Land and Surveys. Their land management unit sends over the recommendations, and then we look at it and we give the approvals on it, Madam Speaker. But it's not the Prime Minister that sits down under this administration. I'm sure it probably was done under his administration, but definitely those that I spoke about last year where we gave out 300 plus, it was not given out by the Prime Minister. It was under the recommendation of the department that also recommended during their time, but they only issued 80. Thank you.
Mr. Pintard maintains that approval applications for Crown land are being mismanaged. He is calling for the government to address thousands of recommendations for Crown land that he claims date back to decades. We'll take a break here. We'll be right back after these commercials.